We start by introducing a woman named Laura, and under her command, the soldiers fired several signal flares for illumination. After the flares landed, Laura nervously advanced. The soldiers quickly grabbed their weapons and aimed ahead. In the military group, it could be seen that these soldiers were all women, but there was no fear in their eyes. When roars came from the front, they refused to retreat, shouting loudly to lift morale. At this point, a group of monsters came into view. Laura immediately led the soldiers into a bloody battle against the monsters. The scene shifts to Willa, who asks her father where these monsters came from. Laura's husband, Stephen, answered that question. Many years ago, a spatial rift suddenly appeared on Earth. Monsters from another dimension traveled through this rift to Earth, frantically destroying cities and hunting humans. They not only had sharp claws and fangs, but also carried viruses in their bodies. If scratched by them, the virus would turn humans into monsters as well. But so far, that virus seems to infect only men. As the number of men decreased, the responsibility of fighting the monsters fell to the women. With her excellent leadership skills, Laura became the leader of the soldiers. When the monsters were not attacking the human camps, Laura stayed home knitting hats for her daughter Willa, or telling stories about the beauty of the world in the past. She said that the earth was colorful back then, very beautiful and peaceful. There were also many lovely animals. Willa asked if they could still be found now. Laura said there should still be some left. They just didn't know where they were hiding. She firmly believed that one day humans would drive the monsters away and restore peace to their homeland. Later, Laura and her husband celebrated their daughter's birthday. Then she opened the gift that her mother had prepared, a hat that took a long time to knit. Willa said she loved it. Seeing this, Stephen also took out his prepared gift. When she opened it, she found a small knitted animal, but didn't recognize it. Stephen said it was a dog, and hoped to find a real one someday. As soon as he finished speaking, a soldier suddenly notified Laura that it was time to leave. They knew this camp was no longer safe. Stephen immediately told his daughter to grab her essentials. While his daughter went to her room to get her things, Laura told her husband some bad news. They had lost more soldiers. Stephen comforted her, saying that everything would get better. As he spoke, he gently touched Laura's wound on her face with concern. She told him not to worry. 72 hours had passed. She had shown no signs of infection, which meant she was safe. Then the family of 3, along with other human survivors, left the building. They were about to get into the vehicle, planning to go to the invulnerable camp under the escort of the soldiers. Laura said she needed to lead the convoy. She told her daughter to listen to her father immediately. Then she left without looking back. A few seconds later, everyone got into the car. Willa leaned worriedly against her father. She kept praying in her heart that everything would be okay. At this point, a soldier next to them, trying to lighten the tense atmosphere, took the initiative to talk about the monsters that infected men. She thought women could also be infected, but the neural structures of women were intricate and complex. The virus couldn't do anything to them. The brains of men were simple and one-dimensional. That's why they were easily infected. The tense atmosphere around Willa also relaxed. She leaned on her father's arms and fell asleep. But a few minutes later, suddenly, several rapid gunshots woke her up. Willa looked at her father in panic. He signaled for her to be quiet. At this moment, the soldiers in the car knew something was wrong. They asked everyone to stay still, and then got out of the car to reinforce immediately. Shortly after the soldiers exited, a monster passed by the truck. Everyone in the car was so scared that they didn't dare to breathe. Suddenly, a woman was suddenly pulled out of the carriage by the monster. Everyone who saw this fled in panic. As soon as they got out of the car, they ran directly towards the monsters. Even with the covering fire from the soldiers, the monsters still captured many humans, as attacking their bodies alone couldn't kill them. Only cutting off their heads would work. Willa, who had never seen such a scene, was terrified. After an explosion of rapid gunfire, someone cut off the monster's head with a knife. It was Laura who had saved them in time. They needed to run to the nearby forest. In this way, their chances of survival would be greater. At this point, a soldier aimed her weapon at an elderly man. The man's arm had been scratched. The soldier couldn't bear to pull the trigger at first, but when she saw he was mutating, she pulled the trigger. Laura heard roars coming from afar. She knew more monsters were chasing them. She told everyone to run to the next camp immediately while she and the soldiers stayed behind to cover. Stephen didn't hesitate. He knew his wife was prepared to die in battle. He immediately took Willa and ran toward the river. As an avid fisherman, he had a boat near the river. Stephen decided to take his daughter to a deserted island to hide. But before they could be happy for a few seconds, a cry for help came from the forest. When she wanted to offer help to the stranger, Stephen told her not to be so naive. Then a man appeared. He asked if the boat was working. Stephen lied and said it wasn't. They were just looking for food. The man suddenly pulled out a gun. Stephen was frightened and agreed to take him along, but that was just to stabilize the situation. Upon seeing the man's back with wounds inflicted by a monster, Stephen knew he would mutate soon. He said he needed to get gasoline. He walked to an abandoned car. The man followed him. He didn't see Stephen pulling a dagger. After a while, Stephen returned alone to the river. He told his daughter to get out quickly. After successfully launching the boat into the water, Stephen sailed with his daughter and successfully reached a deserted island surrounded by the sea on all sides. It was relatively safe, but supplies were very scarce. That's why human survivors hadn't made it their camp. A year later, Willa looked at the sea every day, watching the endless wars, chaos, and destruction on the other side. At this point, a seagull flew over her. This was the first time Willa had seen a flying animal in her life. After counting the days, she climbed the cliff and found the seagull's nest. She found 4 eggs inside. Then she took 3 of them because there was almost nothing to eat on the island. Leaving one wouldn't prevent the seagull from reproducing. After bringing the eggs home, Willa, excited, took out her trophy to show to her father. But Stephen kept complaining. He said the cliff was too slippery. Getting bird eggs was really dangerous. Willa said she could handle it. Stephen had to tell his daughter to go back home, light a fire and fry the eggs, but Willa didn't want to cook. She wanted to chop wood to train instead. While speaking, she wanted to fight with her father. After all, Stephen was a veteran. Even though he had a chronic leg injury from his service, he still defeated Willa without much effort. After defeating his daughter, Stephen said he would continue her special training tomorrow. At night, Willa sat in front of the mirror brushing her hair, looking dejected. Stephen asked what was wrong. She said she missed her mother. Laura used to love brushing her hair more than anything. She wanted her father to style her hair similarly. Stephen also missed his wife. He tried to braid his daughter's hair the way Laura used to do. Luckily, he was quite skilled at it. Even Willa praised him, saying it was exactly like the way Laura did it. To fill his daughter with hope for the future, Stephen told her another story about a hero who killed monsters. Willa had heard this story since she was little. She had no pets to accompany her and had never watched TV or listened to the radio. But she had her father and his stories, although Stephen always exaggerated the details. He said the hero just swung his axe with all his might once, and 100 monsters were immediately sent to the underworld. After finishing the story, Stephen called his daughter to eat the seagull eggs, but she was older now and wasn't easily fooled. She knew that no one could do such a thing, and suspected that the main character in the story was actually her father. Stephen had indeed killed monsters when the rift first appeared. The monsters' weakness was their heads, while the weakness of the infected and mutated men was their brains. He was the first to discover this. The reason he kept telling this story to his daughter was that he hoped she would pass the story down so that future generations would know where the monsters came from and how humans found the hero and fought against the monsters. Just like Laura, Stephen firmly believed that one day the monsters would be expelled and the earth would return to its former vibrant state. The next day, Stephen took a box of mines to the beach. He was afraid that the monsters would evolve. Naturally, the mines could also be used to protect against humans and the infected. After successfully burying the mines, he and Willa watched the opposite coast with binoculars, observing the monsters wandering through the sea. Stephen told his daughter that the monsters actually had no eyes, but their other senses were surprisingly keen, and they would efficiently use the infected, sharing the information seen by the infected through brainwaves. Stephen smiled and said that humans were a threat to the monsters, and any threat should be eliminated. Then he took Willa for special training, because Stephen knew that one day he would leave his daughter. He couldn't protect her for the rest of her life. so Willa needed to have the ability to survive on her own. She was very promising, and her skills became more agile. The way she handled the knife also had the charm of her mother. While he was busy weeding the vegetable garden, Stephen suddenly noticed something. He quickly ran inside to surprise his daughter. Willa asked if it was an insect. Stephen opened his hand. Inside was a shiny red strawberry, but Willa didn't recognize it at all. He quickly explained and asked her to try it. As Willa held and looked closely, Stephen said he thought strawberries had been extinct for a long time. He never imagined they would grow spontaneously on this little island. It was simply a miracle. Upon hearing this, Willa asked her father to eat one as well. She found the taste surprisingly delicious. Stephen continued to tell her stories about the past. The next day, Willa ran down the mountain to fetch water from the spring. She unconsciously glanced at the beach and saw a girl, and then she screamed. The girl was attracted by the sound and quickly ran toward her, but Willa instantly panicked, terrified that the girl would trigger the mines. She shouted loudly for her to stop. Fortunately, the girl stopped just in time. Then, following Willa's instructions, she left the mined area. The girl was crying bitterly and sobbed that the monsters were simply too terrifying. Willa first took her to her secret base in a cave. After lighting a fire, Willa told her to drink some water to calm down. At this point, she noticed that the girl had an injury on her head, so she asked what had happened. The girl said it could have been from a boat collision. Her family of 3 was on their way to her grandmother's house to seek shelter. Unexpectedly, there were monsters in the water. They couldn't swim before, but now they can. Several monsters overturned their boat. Her brother and father died. Upon learning of the girl's tragic experience, Willa felt deep sympathy. She quickly took out the dry rations her father had prepared and told her to eat some if she was hungry. She had planned to go home to get more food, but the girl was very afraid. She kept pleading not to be left alone in the cave. Willa reluctantly agreed. The scene shifts, and Willa finds herself in the forest. Suddenly, quick footsteps came from behind. She quickly placed her hand on her knife, alert. The approaching person was actually her mother. Mother and daughter embraced and cried. After a few seconds, Laura insisted they leave immediately. Willa asked about her father, but Laura said humanity needed warriors. However, Stephen had a bad leg and could not fight, and someone as useless as that didn't deserve to go, they thought. Willa looked around and realized that all of this was just a dream. She gasped heavily. After calming down, she knew her father must be worried, so she quickly packed her things and went back home. As soon as she entered through the door, she startled her father, but he was happy to see her. Stephen angrily asked where she had been the night before. Willa didn't have the courage to tell the truth about the girl. She had to lie and say she got lost in the forest. She found a safe place to sleep during the night. Her father didn't doubt her. He told Willa to eat something to fill her belly. During this time, he said the canned food they brought was almost gone, and the weather was getting colder. There was nothing left to eat in the garden either. They needed to be economical to get through this. Minutes later, she asked about the weapon, and her father revealed that he had to kill the infected man who had blocked them the previous year. He then reminded her that women could also transform, but the probability was very low. Late at night, Willa confirmed that her father was sleeping deeply. She secretly got up and took the only 2 remaining cans, but after careful consideration, she put 1 can back. Then Willa ran to the cave to meet her new friend. The girl took the can and quickly ate the food eagerly. Seeing that she was almost done eating, Willa reminded her to eat sparingly, because this kind of thing was very scarce. The girl asked if she lived alone. Willa didn't have the courage to tell the truth, so she said yes. Then she took out her precious illustrated book and explained the animals inside it to the girl. These were all things they had never seen before. The world is bright and beautiful. After finishing the illustrated book, Willa told the girl another story, saying that the hero had fought for humanity. They killed the first batch of monsters. They thought the war was over. Unexpectedly, a wounded man screamed in pain. Then he mutated in front of everyone. The hero immediately swung his axe, successfully finding a way to kill the transformed monster. She believed he would close the rift later, putting an end to the suffering of all living beings. After hearing the story, the girl rekindled her hope for survival. Willa was also very happy. She gave her beloved hat to the girl. Then she hurried back home before dawn. The next day, Stephen continued training his daughter in combat. He noticed she was becoming more skilled, so he suggested playing a game with her. They played Eagle Catches Chicken. Willa laughed wholeheartedly, but Stephen suddenly lost consciousness and fainted because he knew there wasn't enough food left to let his daughter eat more. He hadn't eaten much lately. She knew he was starving, so she wanted to make some soup, but her father refused, saying they needed to continue rationing until Laura came. Stephen had said this phrase hundreds of times, but Willa had waited on the island for so long. Her mother still hadn't appeared. She didn't want to be imprisoned any longer. Instead, she wanted to fight like her mother, even if the final outcome was death. Stephen became furious, shouting that he only had one wish, that Willa live well. But after calming down, Stephen took out his old sword from the box. The moment the sword was unsheathed, Willa was overwhelmed with emotion. This was what she always dreamed of, becoming a true warrior, and having this sword was a great start. The next day, Willa wanted to show the sword to the girl, so she told her father she was going out to patrol to see if she could find some food. He told her to be careful of everything. Willa said she would be fine. Then she waved the sword and excitedly went to the cave, saying she had brought something good. But when she got near the fire, Willa froze in shock. All the treasures she had given to the girl were shattered. This even included the birthday gift hat that Laura had knitted for her. Willa was heartbroken, not understanding what had happened. At this point, a strange noise came from behind. She quickly followed the sound and found the girl crouched not far away. She asked why she had destroyed her treasures. The girl remained silent. Willa hurried closer, only to be shocked to discover that the girl had transformed. Willa was terrified. The girl jumped on her and knocked her to the ground. Willa completely forgot how to fight. At the right moment, Stephen arrived and frantically shot at the monster, but the bullets quickly ran out. The enraged monster charged at him. Stephen seized the opportunity and fiercely drove the sword into its brain. Then he quickly took his daughter to a well-lit area to check her body. After confirming that Willa hadn't been scratched, Stephen told his crying daughter to cheer up. Their current situation was very dangerous. The transformed monster must have sent a signal to the other monsters. Those lunatics would do anything after receiving the signal. They couldn't risk betting that they couldn't swim. To stay safe, they needed to take the boat immediately and hide on another deserted island. Willa confessed that the monsters could already swim. Stephen quickened his pace upon hearing this. He told his daughter that the mines would delay the creatures by about 10 minutes. They needed to board the boat as quickly as possible. At the same time, a large army of monsters was swimming quickly toward the island. After landing on the island, they triggered the mines. Hearing the roars, Stephen and his daughter did not dare to stop. The two planned to take a shortcut over a single plank bridge. This was part of Willa's daily training. So even though there was a chasm below, she walked toward the other side unafraid. After successfully crossing, she was about to tell her father to follow her, but was shocked to find a transformed monster behind him. She quickly turned to help. Then she grabbed her precious sword and sliced off the creature's head, but what she didn't expect happened. The brain of the transformed monster was still intact. It directly activated a brainwave to control the body and continue fighting. Willa was shocked by this. Fortunately, her father stepped on the transformed monster's head in time, crushing it, and reminded his daughter not to forget that the weakness of the transformed monster was its brain. After running for a short period, Stephen fell to the ground due to the recurrence of his old leg injury. To make matters worse, another transformed monster pursued them. Willa bravely unsheathed her sword and attacked its head. Then she helped her father and successfully reached the beach, but Stephen seemed unwilling to leave. After instructing his daughter on how to start the engine, he revealed the scratch on his chest. Willa couldn't accept reality. At that point, the roars of the monster were getting closer and closer. Willa knew she had to go, so she quickly ran toward the boat. Following her father's instructions, she cut the rope that held the boat with all her might. But strangely, the boat didn't slide into the sea. Willa noticed that something was wrong with the ramp. She pushed the boat with all her strength. Fortunately, the boat really began to move, but then became completely stuck, moving only a short distance. She tried pushing the boat again, but failed. She looked desperately at her father, who was buying time, only to realize he was showing signs of mutation. She knew she could only count on herself now, so she resolutely pulled out her sword, ready to fight at any moment. Stephen looked at his finally grown-up daughter with immense relief. At that moment, sudden barking came from the sea. Willa followed the sound and saw it was her mother coming with a group of people. Her mother had really found a living dog for her. Willa was extremely inspired. Instead of shrinking before the approaching army of monsters, she shouted for them to come at her.